Hello, hello, beautiful people. I hope you've had a great weekend. I had a very busy one and a very busy week before that, but I'm back on track. And today I'm going to be talking about something that is very, very close to my heart. I've spoken before about it, but in a different concept and a different context. Today I'm going to be talking about decluttering. Last time we spoke about hoarding and how hoarding affects our day-to-day life, and it affects our space and everything around us and the energy that we have in our lives. And when I talked about hoarding, and when I always talk about hoarding, I always remind people how hoarding is either directly or indirectly related to our limiting beliefs. And one of the most common limiting beliefs that is attached or that affects hoarding, if you want, is the limiting belief of coming from lack or having no abundance in your life, or feeling or believing that you are not abundant. So when you have this belief, when you have the belief of coming from lack, you tend to always make sure that you have the things that you might need one day, or that you might not be able to afford later on. So you keep these things, and you always find a reason why you want to keep things when you are a hoarder, or when you are limited by this limiting belief, or when you have this limiting belief in your life. So you start collecting things and you start hoarding. And hoarding is different than, having a specific passion for collecting very specific things. A hoarder does not collect something very specific. A hoarder kind of collects everything and keeps everything. A hoarder is someone who does not really throw anything away. Okay. And this mainly is either directly, like I said, or indirectly related to the fact that they are coming from lack. And this lack is the limiting belief that they have, that they are always living in lack, or that they are not abundant. Remember, we are born abundant. Abundance is our divine right. And when people believe that they are not abundant, this is a limiting belief. And this is something that I have worked on for myself. I mean, I used to have this belief before. I used to think that I'm not abundant. I never used to hoard per se. My mom is a hoarder though, but I always, like, I used to have this feeling of coming from lack, but that's all before. I changed all that. And this is what I'm trying to help you do when I talk about all of these things that I've been through. So going back to hoarding and decluttering. Last time I spoke about hoarding, I was very specific, and I talked only about hoarding in your space where you actually live, in your living space, in your home, in your house. I like to call it a home rather than a house. So when I spoke about hoarding, I explained that when you hoard in your house, the whole energy of the house becomes so heavy, and this affects your life as well. So even your life becomes heavy, and even how you deal with things because of this burden that you feel you are under, everything becomes very how do you say it, like very thick and heavy. And the minute you start releasing yourself from this clutter that you have around you, things start changing in your life. And this is why this topic is very, very dear to my heart, because when I did my decluttering exercise, it took literally that same, like the first day I started, that same night, I felt a change in my life. So you can imagine what happened after my whole decluttering exercise finished. my whole life changed completely. Like I shifted 180 degrees my life from one point to another point. And I'm so grateful and so happy that I did this. I actually am grateful for my sister because she's the one who kind of highlighted the decluttering um, process to me. And I was very intrigued. So when I did it and it did change my life, I was so happy. Now, the thing that a lot of people don't know and a lot of people ignore is the fact that hoarding or clutter does not only happen in your home space, it happens in so many other places. But because it's not something that you can physically see or touch, you don't even know it's happening. And in fact, hoarders, most of the time, they don't even realize that they are hoarding. So there are two things about hoarding that today I want to talk about. The first thing that I want to talk about is understanding and believing and not believing, realizing that you are actually hoarding or that you are actually creating clutter in your life. I'm going to say in your life because there are different places where you actually clutter other than your home. And this is what I'm going to talk about next. So, the first thing that I want to talk about is the fact that to be able to declutter your space or your life in general, you first need to realize and acknowledge the fact that you are actually creating clutter in your life, that you actually have clutter, and that you actually, like, unintentionally and like subconsciously, you are creating this clutter in your life. You're not doing it intentionally, consciously in an intentional way, but it is subconsciously intentional. I don't know if you're if you're getting what I mean to say, but it's like you are subconsciously, in your subconscious mind, you are intending to do this, right? But if you consciously think about it, you don't want to do that, right? So that's the number one thing. So the minute you actually acknowledge that this is something that you are doing and that it's in fact it is a problem and it is creating this heavy burden on your life and these heavy emotions sometimes and heavy thoughts and heavy actions or reactions to things that happen around you in your life. Once you acknowledge that, this is the first step, and this is like the most important step, because if you don't really realize that you are doing this in your life, you wouldn't know how to sort it out. It's like anything else in your life. If you realize that you have I don't know, like an issue, trying to go through weight loss, and then you keep on repeating it and you keep on doing it, it's never working, then there's an issue. If you realize that there's an issue and you start tackling that issue specifically, this is when you start seeing results, you know? Because if you keep on doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting different results, like Einstein said, that's literally the definition of insanity. Okay, so the minute you understand or you acknowledge and you realize that, okay, I have this problem, this is when you can start fixing that problem. If you keep, like, my mom does not even realize, I told you before, she's a hoarder and she does not even realize that she is one. And she will never accept the fact that she is one. And hence, this will never be fixed. If one day, hopefully, she accepts that fact and she acknowledges it, I'll be the first one to help her declutter, because, oh my God, she has got a lot of work to do if one day she decides to do that exercise. So, having said that, let's take an example now. Okay, for me, I was not even a hoarder, but I realized that there was clutter lying around in my life, not only in my space, but I started with my space. So the minute I realized that, and it was because of my sister, so I'm so grateful for her, she just pointed that out for me and she gave me a book to read. And I read that book and it literally changed my whole life. So once I realized that, I was like, oh my God, I did not even know that I had this issue. But now that I know it, I'm all about fixing it. And I'm all about getting out of that state that I was in, which is creating clutter all around me in my life and becoming that person who is burdened by clutter, simply. So when I started working on this, I did my space decluttering. But then I thought, is this the only place where actually clutter is? Is this the only place in my life where I am hoarding things or where I am collecting things without even knowing? And then I turned to another space, physical one, um, that we also clutter without even realizing. And this is our office. And when I say office, I don't mean only the physical office. I mean also, for example, our filing system, our files, our emails, our to-do lists, our schedules, everything. Like the schedule, I'll keep it for later because that's a different story. But let's talk about the filing. Let's talk about all the papers that we keep. Let's talk about all the extra pens and pencils that we keep, that we never know when we're going to be using them, but we keep them just in case. So this is another space that a lot of people don't even realize that this is a place where they are actually creating clutter or where they are actually hoarding. Like I'll give you an example of things that you might hoard in your office that might not even cross your mind that you are actually creating clutter by keeping these things. Like, for example, all the wires that you use to connect, I don't know, to charge things or to connect your laptop to a screen or to connect your mouse to your laptop, your keyboard to your laptop. Although a lot of times, I mean, these have become quite wireless, but there are still things. Actually, it's perfect because everything has become so like wireless these days. I have a question for you, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you will resonate with this. Do you still keep the wires that you used to have when you had that keyboard that connected wirely, or that mouse that needed the wire to get connected to the laptop? You still keep those wires? If you do, this is clutter. So look at it from that perspective and think about it from that perspective. What is it that you are keeping in your office that, first of all, you never use? Or if you use, like you use it like maybe once a year and hardly. The things that you keep that are not useful anymore, like the wires I just mentioned. You don't use them anymore, ever. Yeah? That pen that you got visiting some exhibition. I used to have a lot of those. Believe me, I know exactly what this is all about. I was there. I did it. I did that shift. I did that change. And the things that I found laying here, there, and everywhere in my office and in my desk. I work from home, so my office is my desk. That added a lot of a lot of clutter to my home space as well. But considering this as my office space, the things that I got rid of were like, oh my God, like maybe dozens and dozens of pens and pencils that I never use. And pens, for example, you know those pens that when you go to an exhibition and it's like a gift item, or a gift item from a company that you visit, and they give you this pen, and you go to another company, another pen. And first of all, you're never using them and you keep them and then they dry. It's not like you can ever use them again. So it's, you just keep them there and that's it. Years later, you remember, oh my God, I have those. Why do I even have those still? So these are the physical things. And now I have, for example, I'll show you. I have only this. Well, I don't know if you can see it. This is my pen's mug, my ugly mug. And that's it. And that's it. And whenever I'm done with these, I'll get more. It's as simple as that, you know? So that's for the physical part of things. The papers that you have like laying around, you don't even know why you have those papers. Old invoices, old receipts that you may keep. Why do you keep them? Obviously, if we are in a country where you need to do your taxes, I totally get it and I totally understand. But then organize it. Don't let it be like lying all over the place, you know. Make it organized, put them in a very specific place, because otherwise, if they are lying around, especially for those people who do their taxes, if you keep those receipts or those papers lying around, one day you will lose some, and then you will have issues even with your when you do your taxing exercises. So instead of throwing them, or instead of just having them lying all over, figure out a way. I mean, in my course, I teach you how to do these things, but I'm sure that you can find a simple way of, creating a very specific space for those papers that you crucially need in your life and that you cannot get rid of. Anything else, don't keep it. Anything else, don't keep it. You have everything today is digital. So you can keep copies on your laptop, copies in a cloud. You can take pictures and keep copies of those, but you don't physically really need to keep those with you. Unless, like I said, it's for your taxation process. I don't do that, so I don't really know, but I'm sure that lots of people do require to keep those receipts in paper with them so they can do their taxation process. But then do it in a neat way, do it in an organized way, and don't let those papers lying all over the place. The same thing applies to the content that you have on your laptop or on your desktop. How many files do you have? How many documents do you have that you don't even know about, or that you don't even use, or you never go back to, even if it's digitally there? I'll ask you, like, how many times do you have to upgrade the memory of your laptop or the memory of your cloud just to fit so many documents that you never use and you never come back to? So think about it. Acknowledge that you have this issue. Remember, it's always about acknowledging. If you don't find it a problem, or if it's not a problem to you, you won't be able to sort it out. You will only be able to figure it out or fix it if you realize that it's a problem. Excuse me. So acknowledge first that this is an issue. And once you do that, the process becomes easier for you to figure out and to fix. Okay? These are about like the files that you have. So you've now organized your papers, you've organized your files. How about those emails? How about those emails that you know why I'm telling you all of this? Because without even realizing it and without even knowing, the minute we go into this office space that we have, and if it's cluttered with all of this additional, um, I'm going to call it information and physical stuff, our brain is already um, getting drained by this extra information that we don't even require, we don't even need. Like, for example, those emails that keep on popping all the time from things that you have maybe by mistake, put that you are interested, and then you keep on getting those flash emails that mean nothing to you, but then you never do that effort to remove yourself from maybe a distribution list, which can take you like a split second. So your emails are another thing that burdens you, especially if you are someone who is always working and who's always in front of their laptop and always in front of their inbox, and just receiving these emails that are really useless to you and they're not related to your work, and yet you keep them coming. You let them, you let it happen. So if you don't realize that this is an issue to you, then you won't be able to fix it. Again, remember, acknowledge it's a problem so that it can be fixed. And it's a very easy process. You can also organize your emails. It doesn't have to be like one inbox that has everything and then you get lost. You can organize your emails by separating them into either projects or clients, depending on the type of work that you do. So you would know the best way of kind of creating a filing system for your emails. It's the same as you are creating a filing system for your files, but you create like a filing system for your emails. And this is if you have only one email. Like if you're like me and you have different email addresses that you have to attend to because of the nature of your work, if you really don't organize these, it will be like it will be a mess, a pure mess. So organizing even your emails will help you understand, and it will help you with your time management. This is very key for anyone who works a lot and is always in front of their laptop and, either preparing or responding. So the minute you categorize and the minute you split your emails and you file them properly, the way it makes sense to you, because you're the only one who knows how you work. So once you do that, you will see how your time management becomes completely different. How you manage your time, how you manage your, and this is another thing that you can declutter, by the way, your time, and how to manage your priorities. Also, a place where clutter happens. So I just now mentioned two other spaces where your clutter can be found. So we start with your home, we did the office, and now I'm talking about time. So how many times do you say in your day, I have no time to do this? How do you know if you have time or not? How do you manage your schedule? How do you decide what's important in your schedule and what's not? I mean, I smile because this is so dear to my heart, and it's something that it took me a while to figure out, and it took me a while to get out of my how do you call it? I like to call it procrastination, because I used to always, like, I knew I had something happening and I knew that I needed to do something about it, and I always kept it there in the background and like, I'll do it later, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it next year. You know, if you think of something and you don't do it now, you'll never do it. And if you think of something and you don't have time for it on that very, very tight schedule for I don't know why, because a lot of people have a very tight schedule without really needing it to be that tight. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give you an example of when I used to be in the corporate world, when I used to work in the corporate world, especially when you work with the multinational company. Okay, when you are working in a multinational company, you have meetings that are set by so many other people, not the meetings that mean to you only, that come from all around. And you are invited to almost 70% of those meetings. So imagine that you get per day at least 3 or 4 meeting invitations, okay, for meetings that are not directly related to what you do or your work, but just because someone in that company decided that they need to send you this meeting request. And especially if you are new in the job, you feel like you're obligated to do this and you feel like, okay, I have to attend this. If they sent it to me, it's important, then I have to attend it. And then you start attending it. And then all of a sudden, you look at your schedule and there's no time for you to even have a sip of water or to have a cup of coffee or to have your lunch. So you end up going to the office, sitting in front of your laptop, just attending like weekly meetings that add zero value to your job. And I'm saying this with a very, very open mind. And really just think about it. If you are in a corporate job, think about all those meetings that you are attending that really do not add value to the work that you need to be doing for the company, the work that you were hired to do for that company. And the fact that you are saying yes to all of those and how do you say it, blocking your schedule and blocking your time, and you end up not having enough time to actually do the job that you were hired to do. It happened to me. I'm telling you from my own personal life experience. This happened to me when I first joined the corporate world. And then I realized I was asking, like, okay, why am I attending this? How is this helping me in delivering on my responsibilities for my own job? It's not. It's gone. If it's not, it goes out of my schedule. Simple. If it's adding any value, or if I really need it for any reason, then I keep it. Or I would keep like a notification about that meeting in case the topic on that very specific day is something that will help me or is something that is beneficial for me. But other than that, I do not keep anything on my schedule that does not need to be there. And this is how I am decluttering my time. I am decluttering the most important thing that I have is my time and how I use it, because how you use your time is how things evolve in your life and how your life develops. If you use your time doing nothing, then this is how your life is going to be, nothing. But if you use your time effectively and efficiently and you do things and you accomplish things, this is how you become successful, and this is how you grow, and this is how you give yourself the time to do the things that you desire and you aspire to do. So this is how important decluttering your time is. And your time includes your official time, which is your working time. Let's say you work from 9 to 5 or from 8 to 4, whatever your working hours are, you have that time, that schedule, and you have the other time, which is your own time, your personal time. And most of the time when you are working, like let's say for the corporate, in the corporate world, or even when you have your own business, even your personal time becomes connected to your work. And this is where you remember to raise a red flag for your own self, for your own self. If you spend all of your time working, even if you are successful, you will not have the time to savor that success, to taste it, to love it, to appreciate it, to understand it, to cherish it, and to live it, right? So remember that even if you have your own business, your me time is something that is very important, that should be sacred for you, so that you can, number one, enjoy the success that you have reached, you know, feel it and live it. Number two, it's a regenerative process. It helps you come back stronger, and it helps you, when you take a breather and you relax, the next day you have a higher energy. But if you keep yourself busy all the time, and busy and busy and busy, eventually, no matter how much energy you have, and I am someone who has a lot of energy. If you ask people who know me, they will tell you, God, where does she get her energy from? And yet, even if I do all of this and I'm so energetic and I'm always, if I don't give myself time to relax and to have a break, no matter how much energy I have, I will reach to a point where I will get drained. So decluttering my time is very important for me, as it should be for you. Think about it again. Remember, acknowledge it, and then sorting it out becomes an easier process the minute you acknowledge it. So that's for the time. Now, your priorities. Again, this is a place where people clutter, but they don't even know that they are doing it. Like when you take on so many tasks, you take on so many favors, okay? Like you want to help your friend, you take on that favor and another favor and another favor. You take on a task, whether at work or something that you set for yourself. So it could be any of those. When you take on promises, when you promise, not not just things that you want to do, even things that will require any, like the smallest to the biggest amount of time from your own time. These are your priorities. Like, what are your priorities, and how do you declutter your priorities? First of all, priorities need to be real priorities. And when they become real priorities, then it's very difficult to actually clutter that space, your priorities space. But if you take on everything that comes your way and you consider it a priority, then you are cluttering that list. Then you are cluttering that space of priorities. So again, what is important to you? What should be on that list? And what should certainly not be on that list? Acknowledging that will help you in making sure that your priorities list is actually your priorities list. Nothing more, nothing less. But today, if you think about it and take a look at your, like, let's do that as an exercise. Take a look at your priorities list and go through it and see what are the things that are there that should not be there, that are not at all a priority to you. These could be things that have come to you because they are, for example, the priority of someone else. It's very similar to also managing your time. So I'll give you an example. So let's say I'm working, like right now, I'm doing this video, right? And my phone rings and someone else needs something from me. What I do with this information is how I prioritize things and how I act, because I just received this information, is how I prioritize things and how I even prioritize my time. So the clutter in my priorities and the clutter in my time are very kind of they complement each other, or they go hand in hand. They go hand in hand. So if this phone call is a friend of mine or even a coworker who needs something from me to finish something that they need to finish, that doesn't mean that I have to leave everything that I'm doing just to help them because it's their priority. Remember, it's not yours. What is your priority, and where does this favor or task or request, where does it fall in your priorities, if it falls in your priorities at all? You always have the opportunity or the chance to say, I'm sorry, I can't do this, it's not my thing, or I cannot help, or if I can help, it's going to be maybe in 2 days or tomorrow, not today. You know, I know it's not always easy to tell people off, but believe me, I've been through it and I've learned it the hard way. And uh, when I used to say yes to everything, I never had time for myself. I never had time for my own work. My own work got affected because of helping others, and it was never appreciated as well. So what is it that you want to focus on? What is it that you want for yourself before anything else or anyone else? And from there, acknowledging that you have this issue of cluttering your priorities or cluttering your time, once you do that acknowledgement, then you can start working on fixing it. So this is the number 4 or 5. So we've been through the space, we've been through the office, we've been through your time, we've been through your priorities, and the last but not least, actually 2 more things that we need to talk about: your brain and people. So when I say your brain, what do I mean by that? When you clutter your brain, it's like having thoughts and thoughts and thoughts, and like, and I can't say infinite because it is actually infinite, because you don't know really how many thoughts, but you have 75,000 thoughts. Like the average is, for everyone, for any person, is 75,000 thoughts a day. This is how many thoughts you think of per day. Now imagine how powerful you would be in your brain if you know how to declutter your thoughts and how to make sure you ignore everything that, again, adds zero value to you, and thoughts that not just add zero value to you. Sometimes we are subject to thoughts, or we put ourselves in that thinking process of things that do not make us feel good, like our negative thoughts, like our thinking of, oh, what if this happens? What would that be? How would I react? I mean, why do I even put myself in this situation? Why do I even think about something like that? So knowing how much or how many thoughts you would be thinking of, it's just overwhelming to think that your brain already thinks of 75,000 thoughts as an average per day. I mean, oh my God. How powerful is this thing, by the way? How powerful is our brain to be able to even grasp this high number of thoughts per day? And how powerful would it be if or when you realize that you have, as the owner of that tool or this machine that we have, as the owner, I have the power to switch it on to specific thoughts and off to other thoughts, and even clearing it and cleaning it from all the clutter that has been happening in that space, in that space of yours, which is like, this is your powerhouse. Imagine your powerhouse is a place where there's nothing that can be done, or there's nothing that can be put in there because it's so full. How much power do you get? And how much, not power, I want to say how much ownership do you get if you start decluttering your thoughts, and if you start becoming that boss of that space that is your brain? That is very important. Very important. I always start, when I talk about decluttering, I always start with the space that you see. Because once you do that, somehow your brain relaxes, because now it doesn't have to process so many things around in your environment. So that's why your thoughts even become like less quantity wise and less cluttered. And this is one way of starting to declutter your thoughts. Another way of starting to declutter your thoughts is by focusing on something specific at any given point in time, instead of like the same example that I just took about receiving a phone call and having to stop everything just to take in those thoughts that are coming from that phone call. Declutter, organize your thoughts. Put every thought in its place. Put every thought in its priority list, not just in its place. How important is this thought? What should I do with it? Write it down, because sometimes we forget. Write it down. I thought about this. Okay, now is not the right time to focus on this. But if this thought is important, put it somewhere and come back to it later. This is one way of how you can declutter your thoughts. How impressive is that? That if you can do this, if you can just, declutter your thoughts and keep the things that you need to work on, or the thoughts that you need to think about, each one has got to come in its own category, in its own file. Like it's like you're creating a filing system in your brain. This might sound very easy for people who have their masculine energy very active. Okay, because masculine energy is all about logic, and it's all about process, and it's all about simplicity, you know? So it comes across as, okay, this is very like, okay, this is very natural. If your masculine energy is awake and is activated, yes, definitely. But if it's not activated, there would be a struggle in that area. So activating your masculine energy will help you a lot in decluttering your brain and your thoughts. And this is another thing that I also teach in my program. And last but not least, the last thing I want to talk about when it comes to decluttering: people. The people that you have in your life. You know, we live our lives, and obviously no one can live their life alone, right? Having people in our life is a very crucial thing for us to thrive, to live, to enjoy, to have fun, to be challenged, to succeed, to learn from failure if we fail. Hopefully not, but to understand what success means, you have to fail. You cannot just be successful. You will not understand the taste of success if you never fail. But anyway, going back to the major topic, which is the last topic I want to talk about: decluttering. Is decluttering your surrounding. And when I say surrounding, I mean the bunch of people that you have in your life, that you have around you. Who are they? What are they adding to your life? Are they positive people? Do they bring out the best in you, or do they put you down? Are you collecting them just for the sake of collecting them? Why do they exist in your life? It may sound harsh, when we talk about decluttering people from our life, but is it really? Let's say, if I have someone, I'm not going to say a close friend, but even if it's a close friend, I'm just going to say someone who is in my life, who is showing up in my life day in, day out. Maybe it's a colleague at work, okay, who is so negative all the time, who always has this like process of nagging and nagging and nagging and nagging. It's a very simple equation. If it's an acquaintance or if it's someone that works with me, how much time do I need from that person to be in my life? Does that person need to be in my life at all? I mean, if I can work without even being involved with that person, can I do that? Will my work be affected? If my work will not be affected, then by all means, this person should not be part of my life. Even if they physically exist, my ear should be so smart by the use of my brain and the use of my priorities and my thoughts, and being the owner of my brain and my thoughts and my priorities. I should give this thing, my ear, the order of not even hearing that person, even if they are nagging. How powerful I would be if I can do this. And there is no if in this equation, by the way. I can do this. So can you. You can be the master of your environment because you are the master of you. When you are the master of you, you will be able to master your environment. You'll be able to master anything in your life. And this is all about, I mean, my whole course is all about this. My whole program is all about how you master your own life and how you create everything that you want in your life for yourself. And decluttering your space on all levels, so these are the levels that I talked about, is going to help you do this. It's a major, major thing in helping you become the master of your own life. It helped me so much. It changed my life, like I told you, 180 degrees. So going back to decluttering people from your life, sometimes you have to declutter even family people from your life. And by decluttering, I'm not saying that you become their enemies. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that you, keyword, set boundaries. You set boundaries. The best way of decluttering people in your life is by setting your boundaries. And once you do that, people on their own will kind of fall off and they will just go somewhere else because your priorities and your boundaries do not fit with their own values and their own value system. And also your boundaries, they come from your value system, they come from your values, they come from the things that you want for yourself in your life and the things that you don't want for yourself. So the minute you do that, you set your boundaries and you put your non-negotiables, and I've talked about this before as well. The minute you put your non-negotiables, a lot of people will just consequently fall off out of your life. They will not be interested anymore. Another way how people become clutter in your life is by you always being there and always uh, um, um, how do you say it? Always giving time and giving from yourself and from your power and from your energy to these people. And every time you do this, you are putting yourself in a situation where you become someone who is taken for granted. Take it from me. Been there, done that, and lived it. And it's the worst thing that anyone can feel is being taken for granted. So people who take you for granted, first of all, it's not their problem. Nothing that happens in your life is someone else's problem. Nothing that happens in your life is caused by an external power. It's all your doing. It's all in your power. It's all in your hand. The minute you decide to take control of all of this, and you can be in control of your life, no one will be able to take you for granted. And nothing will be imposed on you because you are the master now. You are the driver in that driver's seat. You're not letting that car go on autopilot. You are the driver. You are taking control. And how are you doing this? One of the ways of how you're doing this is by decluttering your life. Now, as a recap, just so you remember, what are these things that we can declutter and how important that is? Number one, your physical space. And that is split into two, but I usually separate them completely. So your home and your office. And this is where the clutter is a physical clutter. Okay. In your office, there's also another kind of physical of clutter, which is the digital clutter that I also spoke about. I mean, before there never used to be something called digital clutter when we used to write everything down, when this thing did not exist, when there was no internet, when there was no video, when there were no laptops, when there were no computers, no phones, everything used to be on paper. Can you imagine before? Oh my God. If you watch like old movies and you see how they used to do the filing and how you would go into a place where there will be like layers and layers of files, like you'd be going into a room and there will be pillars of files all over the place. So can you imagine that before? I mean, now decluttering is at least a little bit less time consuming, to say the least. And space also, because obviously if you want to declutter paper, I mean, ideally now you would go for recycling. Before it wasn't something that people used to do. So going back home, office, physical and digital. After the office, so home office, then we have our time, our schedules, how to declutter that, or that is something that you should declutter. Our priorities, then our thoughts, and last but not least, the people in our lives. So these are the major 6 places where we have clutter and where we hoard without even realizing it. And remember, once you start this exercise, it becomes a habit. So it's not like you do it and you have to do it all the time. The minute that you do it, your choices later on become completely different. So you don't clutter anymore. And this is the beauty of decluttering in the right way. And that's what I also teach, how to declutter once and for all, instead of having to do it like a lot of people do their decluttering process, like maybe once a year or every 6 months. It shouldn't be the case. When you declutter, you have to declutter. You should be able to declutter once and that's it. Because when you do it right, you don't clutter anymore. That clutter, because it's coming from a very specific limiting belief, should not exist anymore, because you would have gotten over that limiting belief, and you would have gotten over the fact that you want to declutter, or you should you want to clutter, or you should clutter, or you should hoard. So this is another thing that I teach in the full program that I'm doing. And I hope this has been of value to you. If you would like to know more and to understand more, please drop me a line in the messenger, and I'm more than happy to answer any of your questions. And hopefully also you'd be intrigued to know more and even learn more and make this your mission for yourself on how to get yourself out of whatever situation you have in your life where you are procrastinating, or where you are always doing the same mistakes over and over again. And all of these things that I'm sharing with you are to help you get out of these situations that you have in your life. So if you are a procrastinator and you keep on pushing things and delaying things and never doing them, and if you are someone who is always doing the same mistake over and over again, get in touch with me. And this program will help you get out of those situations and improve your life and start a new chapter for yourself that is very much different from this, that is always on the uphill, that is always moving forward and never lingering, and never going backwards. So if this is of any interest to you, let me know and I will tell you how to move forward. And with this, I will say ciao ciao and I will see you next week. You have a great week ahead. Ciao ciao.